Hey everyone, this is Jartype. Today I'd like to talk about the RPG genre and the idea of control versus randomness. I've been playing a lot of RPGs recently, and this is an element I've noticed. I'm going to use the TV Tropes definition of an RPG, which is a genre of video games in which the player controls a character or party of characters in a statistically abstracted way. Most are based around one or more quests, items, stats, character customization, and experience points, as characters grow in power over time. Now, this power growth creates a sense of progression and accomplishment for building a strong character or team. However, lots of games also add an element of randomness in the materials you can build your character from. This adds a lot of replayability to the game at the potential cost of reducing that sense of progression by making those awesome characters that you build up not work the next time the resources are randomly generated. Let's represent this by using a sliding scale of control versus randomness. Note that this only applies to randomness in the characters you can build, not in the challenges you may face. On one side, you have all your resources being completely consistent in each playthrough of the game. On the other, you have all your resources being completely randomly generated each playthrough, with no one strategy that you can use most of the time. By the way, I'm only going to be examining single-player RPGs. MMOs must necessarily fall on the far end of control, since randomly giving some players powerful abilities that other players just can't would be unfair. Before I go any further, I personally prefer games that fall on the control half of the spectrum. I enjoy math and building things, but I am very bad at making complex decisions quickly, so I find it frustrating to spend a lot of time analyzing something, only to have to throw it all away, and I much prefer being able to keep the characters I put so much thought into building. But many people have different preferences, as at least one of these examples will demonstrate. So that said, let's begin. Let's start with Minecraft for an example. I'm not sure whether this qualifies as an RPG, but it will do for an example. A game like Minecraft would have complete control, because while the world is randomly generated, you will always have access to the exact same set of building blocks with which to accomplish tasks in the game. The same applies to most other building games like Stardew Valley. Next up is Monster Sanctuary, a game I've been playing a lot recently. In this game, your team is a team of monsters like in Pokemon. You can choose up to 6 monsters from a number of species, and you can further customize them by choosing the points in their skill trees and applying a few other customization options like equipment. You have complete control over all of this. Some things require a bit of grinding to get, but you can access all of the same options in every playthrough. So Monster Sanctuary falls on the furthest end of the control side of this scale. Now, Monster Sanctuary does have an optional PvP mode. I wouldn't consider it an MMO, but as I mentioned before, PvP in a game necessitates that resource randomness be eliminated or at least minimized so that players can fight on an even footing. So I'd say that any game with decently fair PvP needs to fall on the left of about this line. And for the PvP to be completely even, it needs to be brought to pure control somehow. The next game I want to examine is Slay the Spire, and this game falls on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. In Slay the Spire, your character fights battles with a deck of cards as well as relics which affect how they play. Both the cards and the relics you get are completely random. Every time a game ends, your deck and relics are reset, and you are by no means guaranteed to get any single card again in your next playthrough. If you could get the exact cards in your deck, it would be ridiculous. You just build a deck with, say, 4 Flash of Steel, 1 Finesse, and 1 Finisher. You'd win easily and you'd build that exact deck every single time. The game is just fundamentally not designed for control, so Slay the Spire falls on the randomness end of this scale. This is also where all pure roguelikes fall, the genre that Slay the Spire is a member of. Since pure roguelikes are defined by random generation and permadeath. And this is why I don't really like roguelikes in general, since, as I said, I prefer RPGs that let you build more. I like the deck building element of Slay the Spire, and I like a lot of the lore and mechanics, but not the roguelike elements. Those frustrate me. The last game I want to examine is Darkest Dungeon. In Darkest Dungeon, your team consists of 4 adventurers, each from one of several different classes. Besides their class, each adventurer has equipment, trinkets, skills, and quirks. Those first 3 things can be essentially controlled. However, quirks are gotten completely randomly and can't be controlled without a big chunk of gold and a ton of RNG luck. This means that while you can discover the best teams and upgrade your characters, there's still a large element of RNG that keeps the game fresh. So I'm placing it here on the control side, but still quite near the middle, especially compared to the other games I've played. Also of note, shortly after I got the idea for this video, I discovered that Darkest Dungeon is going to have a PvP expansion. I'll be interested to see how they manage the quirks in PvP mode to keep things fair. As I was making this video, I tried to think of more games that fall somewhere in the middle of this spectrum, and I realized that I haven't played any that I can think of. This led me to 2 conclusions. First, I need to play more games from a variety of genres. And second, Darkest Dungeon is a great game that does a good job of balancing control and randomness, and is fairly genre-busting in a sense. I'd like to see more games like it. Maybe I'll make a part 2 to this. Maybe I'll make a part 2 to this video when I find more games I'd like to examine. Well, that was all I had to say about control versus randomness in RPGs. I've been Chartype. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, then please let me know using the like and or comment buttons below. Bye.